I will share with you a story of two resonating timelines stretched beyond history. It is about time, truth, respect, and how the spirit of innovation has been unchanged from the Stone Age to today. From the first hole dug at the site of Stonehenge 5,000 years ago, to freshly laser-cut lozenge rulers at Episcopal's engineering lab, to truly understand the innovators of Stonehenge's past, we have to become innovators ourselves. And to become an innovator, we have to have a mindset rooted in respect for the capacity of ancient intelligence, while also having the courage to be bold enough to test the trueness of our findings. The first timeline began 4 years ago during the COVID lockdown when I could not accept Stonehenge as just a giant pile of rocks. You may have seen in articles or heard in history class about the mystery of Stonehenge, but I had to know what its purpose actually was 5,000 years ago, apart from being a mysterious tourist attraction. The second timeline is the real deal, expanding 5 construction stages across 1,500 years, starting in 3000 BC and ending in 1500 BC. This was easily the longest-lasting engineering project in the world's history. Let's time travel to the year 3000 BC, which marks the start of the construction of Stonehenge. The stage is set in southern England at latitude 51.2 degrees, where ancient Britons glanced at the expansive abyss above. Their old nomadic ways yielded to a new era, transitioning from hunter-gatherers to farmers of the land. But instead of getting time from school bell rings or from annoying iPhone ringtones, they got time from the stars, the moon, the sun, and shadows of posts and stones on Stonehenge. These stones became their stewards of time. Stonehenge was a massive feat. Neolithic Britons hauled around 80 sarsen stones from 25 miles away, and each of these weighed around 25 tons, which is roughly the weight of 5 U-Haul trucks. They also hauled around 80 smaller blue stones from 150 miles away, and each of these weighed around 2 to 5 tons. This was a strenuous project even by today's standards. Precision ruled the placement of each stone, aligning monoliths with celestial rhythms unique to this latitude. But to me, what is more shocking is not the weight, nor the distance traveled by these stones, but the intricate geometrical patterns manifested by their precision and the deeper meanings beneath each formation. So, what was Stonehenge? A burial site? Archaeologists say so with supposed evidence. There are around 60 humans' worth of cremated bones buried at the site of Stonehenge. Or it could be a place for healing, since a wounded soldier was buried a few miles from Stonehenge. Or it could even be a giant astronomical calendar, given that the whole site is oriented to align with the 40.5-degree summer solstice, meaning that the selection of this site of Stonehenge was deliberate, even from the beginning of construction, because this 40.5-degree alignment only happens at this specific latitude. But were these Britons capable enough to do this? Because actually think about it, because this would be amazing if they did. That would mean they still hauled about 100 of these huge stones, each weighing 5 to 25 tons, while still precisely placing them in calendric formation. Mainstream theories say no, they were not capable. But all of the attempts, some even made by world-renowned scientists built on the basis that they were capable, were rejected one by one. For the entirety of the past 4 years, I've been trying to answer this question and reconstruct Stonehenge's originally intended purpose, but not by my subjective opinion, but by following the objective evidence, and by asking myself, what would I do if I was an original designer of Stonehenge? I know this may sound weird to you all, but to me, Stonehenge had a life of its own. Before, I faced a never-ending cycle of waking up, going to school, going to running, then dance, and then finally going home to do my homework and sleep at a nonstop pace with no gaps in between. But after I began chasing this stream of questions, I found new grounding beyond my fast-paced life. This, to me, was a shared joy of invention and direct dialogue between me and these Stonehenge builders living 200 generations ago. Thus, the whole essence of this inquiry was to reinvent the wheels as a true Stonehenger. And throughout my 4-year journey of doing this, I have 2 messages for you. 1, truth matters, and 2, respect your own and past intelligence. One midnight 2 summers ago, I woke up in a literal sweat over a terrifying idea about Stonehenge, but by then I had already made some findings. I matched the 2D site plan of Stonehenge with 2 nearby excavated Bronze Age lozenges. One of these lozenges was called the Bush Bear Lozenge, and it was buried only half a mile from Stonehenge. And it is commonly referred to as the crown jewel of Stonehenge by many scholars. The other is called the Clan Barrow Lozenge, and this was buried around 50 miles from Stonehenge. And what I mean by matching pattern is that every single ring on Stonehenge is perfectly circumscribed by a band on the Clan Barrow Lozenge, whether it is the innermost band on the Clan Barrow Lozenge that circumscribes the sarsen stone, or the outermost band on the Clan Barrow Lozenge that circumscribes the Aubrey hole. And there's another alignment. And from that shared pattern, I then derived the nested square pattern. And what this models is the concentric pattern shared by both all rings on Stonehenge and all the layered bands on these Bronze Age lozenges. So by taking a unit square with this length as x equals 1, and by inscribing another unit square within the unit circle, I then deduce that this length is 1 over root 2 by the simple 45, 45, 90 triangle ratios. And then I nested even another square between those two layers, and I get the layer x2 by taking the average. So I get 1 plus 1 over root 2 over 2. And this pattern can be added even more by nesting even more squares in between. So here I have displayed x1 through x6. And even further, instead by measuring these ratios of sides by lengths, but instead by angles, you get the layer x2 equals 40.5 degrees. This is the same 40.5 degrees as the axis measurement of the Bush Bear Lozenge, the same 40.5 degrees as the axis of the Stonehenge site itself, and the same 40.5 degrees as the summer solstice sunrise alignment unique to that latitude. And by taking the angle measurement of the x3 layer, you get around 35 degrees, which is the angle of the Clan Barrow Lozenge. This single nested square pattern links all the concentric rings on Stonehenge, the layered bands on both of these Bronze Age lozenges, and the astronomical cave abilities at Stonehenge unique to that latitude. And from this nested square, I then derived the protractor capabilities of these lozenges, classifying them as the world's oldest protractors and breaking the previous record by at least 600 years. I was happy with these findings, but not completely settled. With that great pattern matching, I thought Stonehenge was built in a way that was too precise to be built without rulers. But where was this ruler? What unit of length did it use? How could anything be sure, given that most, if not all, physical evidence was completely gone? And while attempting to answer this question, I became more drawn to the deeper dimensions of humanity beyond Stonehenge itself. This transformed from solely logical and mathematical reconstructions of Stonehenge to caring more about the humans behind Stonehenge. So my question steered to how. How can I understand these ancients as people with a tremendous capacity for innovation? Already stored in my jumbles and jumbles of graphical experiments was the overlaid matching between Stonehenge and the Clan Barrow Lozenge that had led to my discovery of the nested square pattern. But this is where the super scary thought came in. I thought if this Clan Barrow Lozenge was indeed the ruler used to scale Stonehenge up by, then it only makes sense that the scale factor is practical and convenient. Because would it make sense for you to scale a site up by an objectively bad ratio, like 413 times a unit of length or 789.38 times a unit of length? I would not, and I assume you wouldn't either, because those ratios are not convenient, nor are they practical. Ratios like 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, and 1 to 500 are all better ratios and good ratios that would justify my belief of this Clan Barrow Lozenge ruler. But if this ratio indeed turned out to be bad, this would be very detrimental. This would mean either the lozenge was not a ruler, or Stonehenge did not use this unit. Consequently, all of my work for the past few years could mean nothing, and my findings of that shared pattern match could be deemed a mere coincidence. In this way, my work for the past 2 years depended on this one single number. It was the longest night of silence and helplessness. I collapsed into bed overwhelmed by my chaotic thoughts and intense emotions. On one hand, I intensely feared the possibility of all of my previous work and effort poured into this project vanishing. But on the other hand, seeking truth was the sole reason why this project even got started and why I stuck with it through the ups and downs. This was the pivotal point in my research. It was the truth that mattered. Being wrong to me was okay as long as I could see the truth on their side. And besides, I was never completely hopeless since I was never alone. I'd always been confident in the scientific sophistication of our prehistoric predecessors. They did not write, but they did pretty much everything else. Counting, drawing, making, and thinking, just like us. So I gathered the courage and I decided to conduct this quick test of finding the scale factor between Stonehenge and the Clan-and-Barrow lozenge. And amazingly, it turned out to be the best ratio possible. 1 to 1,000 between the Aubrey holes on Stonehenge and the outermost band on the Clan-and-Barrow lozenge. This was too good to be a coincidence. This base 10 counting strategy strongly indicated to me that it was a design of the people, by the people, and for the people. These ancient Britons did indeed have rulers, and it confirmed what I had always believed. They were extremely creative and sophisticated. 2 of these artifacts have survived, so far perceived as artfully decorated ornaments in museums and on the internet. But with truth, respect, and a lot of scary anticipation, I was able to reclassify them as measuring tools. Only when I dared to embrace the discomfort of being wrong could I make these discoveries. In the time of crisis, I trusted the everlasting spirit of innovation between different times, places, cultures, and people. And trust in that led to discovery. Going back to the central question, was it possible for these prehistoric Britons to have built Stonehenge at such a grand scale, with such intricate calendric precision, at such an early time, with no power tools at all? I say yes, because they were innovators too. Claiming Stonehenge as just a site for burial is not only an underestimation of their intelligence, but also an underestimation of our own. Quite often, this underestimation of ancient intelligence comes from the arrogance of modernity. Do you think you're smarter than your teachers or parents? Do your teachers or parents think they're smarter than their teachers or parents? This line of questioning leads me to my final question. Do you think Stonehenge builders and prehistoric people were preliminary, living 200 generations ago? It is not fair nor correct to judge these people as unadvanced simply because we possess an accumulation of 5,000 more years of knowledge. The spirit of innovation does not start with us. It dates back to the hundreds and thousands of generations of thinkers, mentors, and dreamers that came before us. It wasn't dimmer in the ancient past, and it won't fade away in the near future. Unsurprisingly, this is where our intelligence comes from. I wouldn't even have been able to stand before you all here today and tell you my story with Stonehenge if it weren't for the generation of thinkers and mentors so close to all of us. Mr. Ingholm, Ms. Sutcliffe, Dr. McLean, Ms. Halleck, Ms. Thompson, and my parents in Eugene, I am eternally grateful. Only once we internalize this mindset, rooted in respect for the capacity of our prehistoric predecessors, can we realize our potential as the newest generation of innovators. Just like you and me, you all probably feel like your schedules are packed with so many responsibilities, whether they be family, extracurricular, or school. Trust me, I know. But I plead you to focus on the endeavors that captivate you. Asking why, one after the other, and not being swayed by popular belief is what brought more fulfillment to my life. This is what I feel is so special about learning. Only from critically wondering the why behind things we know to exist can we do more, discover more, and be more. And good news for us as high schoolers, we actually hold some unique advantages over professional researchers. We are young and imaginative, and we hold limited knowledge before our pre-specialized fields. With modern scholars exercising too much specialization over creativity, they were not thinking like Stonehengers were. But the incomplete set of information we are yet to learn in college and beyond puts us in a position closer to our prehistoric predecessors where we run a lower risk of surpassing them in terms of raw intelligence. We have no other choice but to fall back on our imagination, our creativity, and our curiosity, just like they did. We thus enjoy our maximum capacity of rationality and creativity without the burden of using too high of a level of math or science. You can let your mind lead your action. So by attempting to match our creativity to our ancients, we in turn become innovators ourselves. But much more than finding prehistoric rulers or protractors, I found the power of reasoning, honesty, courage, and the need for trust and respect between timeless creativities thousands of years and thousands of miles apart, and the potential for us as the next generation of innovators.